Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. I thought we would just watch the price a little bit. Um, Nothing too crazy is going on right now. We're at 38.8. But let's see what happens over the next few minutes at least. Just going to post this a few different places, and then we will jump in. All right. All right, so Bitcoin's now at 38.8. We've dumped down to the prices we were at a few days ago. But, I mean, for now, it looks like the 21 week EMA, I guess, that's the current battle, right? That's what we're currently below. Like, forget the 20 week SMA. We still need to get past the 21 week EMA. We're not even, we've come back down below that right now. So again, I think patience is what is needed. Everyone wants to FOMO in and whatnot. But remember, the final boss isn't even really the 20 week. I mean, it's sort of the 20 week, but coming back down to it. So like, this is like getting above the 20 week is sort of like the level 1 boss or on easy mode, and then coming back down and holding it as support. That's like the level 2 boss, right? Or beating the game on hard mode. So those are the big bosses, right? we still have to get by. In the meantime, I guess we've dropped below the 100. Yeah. So we've dropped below it right now. So we're back below the 100-day estimate, which is at 39,866. The 50 days are at 35K. So that might be an area to watch in the event of a sustained dump. The 50 days, actually, we held support on the 50-day many times during the last, by many, I mean like maybe 2 or 3 during the last move earlier this year. But anyways, let's look at some of these other patterns. Let's look at the log of the price over the 20-week SMA, which I feel like some people like, some people don't. Let's switch this over to an exchange with slightly more data. And draw the line in the sand. You can see that, I mean, temporarily we flip back red, okay? So don't be surprised if this happens for a little bit, right? I mean, it happened in 2019 where we were red, green, red, green, red, and then we took off, right? So remember that you can get those phases where we sort of continue flirting with the lines, the bull market lines, but nothing actually ever happens. It could go red for a while in the event that we obviously get rejected by the bull market support band on the first attempt. So right now we haven't really, I wouldn't say that we've officially completed the first attempt. I mean, we're still fairly early in the week. Last week we closed at a very modest $39,868. So we closed above the 21-week EMA last week. Right now we're back below it. I think we'll have to see what the rest of the week brings. Obviously this could just end up being a wick if we move up higher and test the 20 week. But we still have a long way to go. I know some people are telling you still 300K by September. I have a hard time imagining it, my friends. A really hard time imagining that. So far the corridor has held. So I guess the question is, well, where is it now, right? Where is it now? You can see that it is held, in fact, so far. We came down to it several times. Recently, though, it's come down a little bit, all the way down to 27,656. So that's where the little corridor we have is now. So remember, the corridor just sort of is, the idea is just sort of show the bounds based on these fits. And if you think it's been really accurate, you should remember that I only coded this indicator back over here. So it hasn't really been tested that much yet, right? This has been the first test of it. So again, nothing you can really take to the bank. We'll see if it continues to hold though. Right now, it would imply the price not going below 27.6 in the event of a dump. Right now, we are still, near the bull market support band. We still need to get above our prior local top from January. Okay, so that's, obviously an area that we would like to get past in order to have a chance to get past the 20 week. Now remember, we could get to the 20 week without breaking this line. And you might say, well, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Well, the way to do it, this is the 140-day estimate. Again, it's slightly different than the 20 week because of how it's calculated, but it's over the same amount of time. And they're fairly close together. Maybe they're separated by $1,000 or so. But in order for us to get above the 20 week now, we would need to go above 43,587. Okay, so could we do it? Yes. It will keep coming down though. It's only going to take a couple more weeks. Well, maybe more than a couple. Maybe, I guess it depends on what the price of Bitcoin does, right? We don't really know how quickly it's going to come down. It will depend on what Bitcoin does. But it's not like it would take that much longer for it to just be below the 42K threshold, right? It's only going to take a few more weeks before the 20 week goes below it. And remember, it'll go below it more than likely regardless of what Bitcoin does, right? Even if Bitcoin were to pump to 60K tomorrow, it's not going to stop the 20 week from going below 42K at this point, because again, you're essentially going to stop including all of these, and you're going to just be including all of these. Okay, so if you look at 20 weeks, we would need to instantaneously go to 60K, I guess, to sort of to sort of get it to level out, the 20 week estimate. In order to get it to level out, you would basically have to immediately go to 60K or so. Otherwise, the 20 week SMA is going to keep decreasing, which again, the absolute value of it is somewhat irrelevant. It's just the line in the sand for the market to feel like it's bullish or for the market to feel like it's bearish. It doesn't really matter what it is. I mean, it could be 20K, it could be 50K, it could be 80K. It doesn't really matter. It just is how the market feels, how the sentiment is in the market. If we go look at our regression bands for Bitcoin, we maintain ourselves in no man's land, so sort of in between both regression bands. We're not up in this region. We're also not down here, so we remain in no man's land. And this is one of those things we've been talking about for the last several months is playing in the sandbox and no man's land, right? That's what we've been doing. Let's go look at some of the other indicators. What else do we have? Obviously, we have the regression rainbow, which we've looked at a number of times. The general idea being that this was the main accumulation window for the cycle, but we had a little bit more intra-cycle volatility coming up to this level, coming down to this one. It was a little bit more intra-cycle volatility than the one over here, because this one was a pretty well-defined structure, just kind of staying in that regression band for the entirety of the accumulation phase. This one, a lot more intra-cycle volatility. So now we're just shy of this one. And actually, it's interesting because this one also corresponds to the 20 weeks. So if we were to overlay, you can see that that's where it corresponds to. Might be an interesting area to watch out for over the next several weeks. Obviously, you guys know that altcoins have gone on a bit of a tear here, with Bitcoin having this recent rally of like 10 green days in a row. We've just had we've had 2 reds in a row now, maybe a third one more than likely. Altcoins are doing relatively well, but I imagine it's because Bitcoin is holding up okay, right? It's still around 40K. We're not, the market isn't absolutely dumping at this moment. And for now, altcoins are holding up relatively okay against their Bitcoin valuation. And yeah, if you guys have questions, we'll try to get to those. Make sure you guys subscribe if you're not subscribed. Give the video a thumbs up. Let's see, what questions do you guys have? Yeah, ADA is still chilling at $1.30. Pretty resilient, honestly. DOT has gone on a crazy run. It was up to over $19, right? Yesterday, I think it hit over 19, maybe the day before. DOT was like 1950 or something crazy in a relatively short period of time. So DOT went on a really impressive run. Link is at $23. You know, I mean, none of us are getting out of bed for a $23 Link, I doubt, but still a nice little move. And we can pull up our bull market support band on it, and you can see it's right below the 21-week EMA, still at 23.77. Right now we're at 23.23. The 21-week, that's the 21-week EMA. The 20-week estimate is at 27.37, so about $4 higher from the current prices. Let's see, what other questions? What about, yeah, I know, I mean, the whole August 4th thing with Ethereum, you know, it's hard to imagine. Okay, I mean, I was with you guys, right? We watched Ethereum go back on the channel, right? We watched it go from $80 to $4,400 down to $1,700. Now we're back up to $2,600. It's hard to imagine. This is not financial advice, right? It's hard for me to imagine that it's not a sell the news type event. I mean, I'm not telling you what to do, and I don't trade based on events or anything. But the idea that it's just going to continue going up green day after green day after green day forever is probably not true. So it seems to be rallying towards that August 4th date potentially. We'll see what happens after that. I mean, I think regardless of whether the rally immediately continues or not, it will have a pullback at some point in the not so distant future, similar to what Bitcoin has been doing, right? I mean, Bitcoin went on a crazy run as well, and then over the last 3 days, it's come back down. And because Bitcoin isn't capitulating, altcoins are holding up relatively okay. It's the major moves that affect altcoins' Bitcoin valuation are when Bitcoin moves too quickly. So if Bitcoin moves too quickly up, or if Bitcoin moves too quickly down, that's what causes loss of confidence in the altcoin market. So for now, Ethereum still looks relatively healthy based on the fact that Bitcoin is still sort of holding up here, right? I mean, it hasn't had a major dump yet. Okay, we're still sort of hanging out here at 39K. But at the same time, if we're looking at this chart and saying it's just going to continue this rally indefinitely, I would be kind of surprised. But I mean, at this rate, if it keeps going up at this rate, let's say until August 4th, you know, we could be looking at over $2,700 Ethereum at the current rate, maybe even $2,800 if it kind of has a wick up or something, which coincidentally is also the same level that we hit over here. So it might be an area to look out for. But again, it's when Bitcoin moves too quickly that causes altcoins to bleed against Bitcoin. If Bitcoin goes up too quickly or down too quickly, that's what causes those sort of knee-jerk reactions from altcoins. Yeah, thoughts on the Ethereum 2.0 wrap. I think they said that was from 2019 actually. So if you haven't seen it, go to my Twitter. You probably can find a link to my Twitter in the description below. And I just saw some like Ethereum 2.0 wrap, but I think maybe it was released a long time ago. I thought it was kind of an interesting wrap. Yeah, I mean, Christian says we have to acknowledge that high cap alts are pretty much at the same level they were at the start of May. Well, I mean, I think it depends on how high you're talking about. Because again, DOT was at like $40 or $50, and now it's at $18. Okay, Link was, you know, at the beginning of May, I mean, it was at $52. So I don't know that that's necessarily a valid comparison. Maybe you're talking about Cardano, which, I mean, yeah, is really impressive. Again, I mean, this is my primary hedge against Ethereum. Not that I think I don't think ADA is going to overtake Ethereum, but ADA has held up well. I mean, this is about as the best you could have hoped for an altcoin, right? To move up and then to go sideways since February, given the volatility of the market, and to see ADA, just sort of hold these levels is very impressive. I mean, it's basically what you could hope for, So ADA's looking really strong. Obviously, the other two altcoins that we follow on the channel, Link and DOT, have not been holding up as strong since the Bitcoin drop from 64K down to 29K or 28K, now back up to 38 or 39K. Why do I think ADA is so stable? Yeah, there's a few reasons. Probably staking has something to do with it, but a lot of cryptocurrencies have staking. So I think marketing is one thing. I mean, I do think they're doing some good things, or I should say they're doing a lot of good things, but they're doing some things I think better than other projects. I would say it's, out of all the major chains like, Ethereum, Cardano, Solana, Polkadot, Matic, Cosmos, Avalanche, etc. There's a lot of them. I would say Cardano is probably the most decentralized after Ethereum. So Ethereum's the most decentralized, and then I would say Cardano after that. The main concerns I think with a lot of the projects is that not all of them will stand the test of time. It's sort of like if you were betting on which car companies were going to win out, 5 decades ago. It's hard to know, right? It's hard to know which ones are going to win out. It's easy to look back and say, oh yeah, like it was obvious all along. But at the time, it's not like you would have known. And so you look at all these projects today, right? You look at Cardano, Solana, Matic, Ethereum, Avalanche, Cosmos. I mean, there's tons of other ones, right? I mean, you guys can list them in the chat. There's tons of other ones, right? There's tons of, Tezos is another one, right? That one hasn't really done that well. But yeah, there's a ton of them. And they all have their advantages and disadvantages. Some of them sacrifice centralization for scalability. Remember, it's not about like which one is best, because best is somewhat subjective, right? Best is subjective. So there's also the Binance Smart Chain, right? So with Binance Smart Chain, you're essentially sacrificing a ton of decentralization, but you're getting scalability. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It depends on who you ask. Some people would prefer decentralization. Some people would prefer scalability. And it really just depends on what people want, okay? And there's going to be different groups of people that want different things. So I think that's important to keep in mind. Like Cardano doesn't have smart contracts yet, but they have a useful validator program that I think beats all the other ones out of the water, to be completely honest. Cardano's validator delegator program I think is by far superior to a lot of the other projects, right? A lot of the other projects have like weird caps on the amount of validators they can have. In order to have like a stake pool, you have to have like $30 million worth staked, or they have only like 100 validators. Like I think Matic is very limited in the number of validators that they'll even have. Polkadot's another one of them. Solana is the size of it is going up incredibly quickly. Therefore, the cost to run a validator is really expensive, and the validator also has to pay 1 SOL per day just to keep it running. So when you talk about business, right? You talk about business, which at the end of the day, the money is going to drive the market. These other chains, all the chains, they have their advantages, right? Solana is like it can be kind of bulky if you're running your own node, but the advantage of it is it's incredibly quick, right? It's incredibly quick. So all of them have their advantages and disadvantages, and whether one's better than another is obviously dependent on what you think is important. Like, do you think decentralization is important? Do you think scalability is important? What do you think is important? So yeah, I mean, a lot of the Harmony one, yeah, a lot of the projects have they have their nuances, right? And what in my in my completely humble opinion, and I'll say it on a live stream, but a lot of projects, what my opinion of them and is is that they're not really that groundbreaking, right? They're not really that groundbreaking. They do small tweaks in the code because they know that Bitcoin's going to go on a bull run. They know Ethereum's going to go up well as well. So then they do things to make sure that the developers cash in on it. Now I say that I really like Cardano. I really like Polkadot. There's a few other chains I'm thinking about getting investments in. But you also have to recognize that a lot of these projects, it's not like they've had a team running them for 10 years or something. It's like, they copy a bit of code, they change a few lines, they put out a marketing team, and they promise the world during the bull market, and then when the bears come, they're sort of like, oh, wait a second, we actually have to spend a few years patching this out. We have to apply some duct tape over the mess we created. So I think Cardano gets a lot of flack because of how long it takes them to get the smart contracts out, and maybe they should. But the alternative I've seen other projects do is also rush something out, and then it doesn't really work that well, and then they have to spend a while, fixing it. Okay, so wherever you stand, right? Wherever you stand, whatever chain you're sort of riding on or betting on, recognize that a lot of the chains have a long way to go. Ethereum, in my opinion, because of rollups, right? They're much further ahead than I think a lot of people think they are, because I think a lot of them are already recognizing that they have to switch to rollups anyways. And some projects admit it, some projects don't. But I do think that a lot of the projects will end up resulting to rollups. Therefore, Ethereum will be somewhat ahead in that game, and that Ethereum is also vastly superior in terms of decentralization. I would say Ethereum first, and Cardano second, and then you can go down the chain, probably Binance Smart Chain near the end. So that's sort of my opinion, right? That's sort of my opinion on the chains, and that's probably one of the reasons why it's holding up so well. Is it actually has a useful staking program that incentivizes both the validators and the delegators. And then also, I guess it has one hell of a marketing program. Okay, this is my other guess. I mean, if you look at the channels, I was covering ADA since 2 cents, by the way. So, well before I had my own nodes. And I sort of, what I witnessed, and I'm sure you guys saw it too, is right around the time ADA hit like 30 cents, it seemed like all the big channels started covering it, right? Every single big channel started talking about ADA constantly. And I mean, I like ADA, but it just seemed a little weird, I guess, to me. Anyways, I think ADA's holding up relatively well, given the circumstances, and that, I'm honestly encouraged by how well it's held up over the last 6 months. I mean, this is one of the reasons I wanted to hedge against Ethereum, was not because I think Ethereum's going to do poorly. I think Ethereum will do fine. It's just that, it's easy to see the high fees coming back, and people wanting an alternative solution, etc. Okay, so when we talk about Ethereum or hedges against it, whether it's Cardano, Polkadot, Solana, whatever you want it to be, a lot of it is playing off that narrative. I would say that some of these, not all of the chains are going to survive, right? Not all of them are going to survive. So pick wisely, figure out what you think is important, whether you think it should be scalability, decentralization, how quick the protocol can operate. Figure out what you think is important. Or maybe not. Maybe don't figure out what you think is important. Figure out what you think the market will find important. Because what you find important is somewhat irrelevant, right? Figure out what you think the market finds important, and that's what you should bet on, right? That's what you should invest in. Figure out, if you can figure out what the market will ultimately value between the major projects, okay? And I do think, if we're being honest, right, everyone wants to make money, and even the developers of these projects, they want to make money too. So what do, right? You just rush out a project in time for the bull market, and then you fix it later. I like the fact that Cardano hasn't done that, right? I mean, they've been around forever, and smart contracts have. I mean, I don't, I mean, who even knows? But at least they didn't take the alternative approach of throwing something out there and then patching it up later because no one wants to use it or it's getting too bulky to use. I should also say, there's a lot of people that like to say, well, these other networks are faster than Ethereum. It might be true, okay, but a lot of the projects are very similar to Ethereum with small differences, but they also don't have the throughput of Ethereum right now. I mean, if you think about it, the amount of transactions going through Ethereum far exceeds what's going on through these other chains. So if that's true, then you wouldn't expect the fees to be as high because it's just not being utilized as much. Okay, so one of the reasons Ethereum's fees are so high is because it's being utilized so much. So that's actually an acknowledgement that it's doing well. It's actually being utilized. There's utility on the chain. That's why Ethereum is, I mean, in terms of these chains, it's the cream of the crop. Now, if the throughput of these other chains increases, then their fees will go up too. And you might say, well, no, the fees won't go up because what they'll do is maybe they just increase the block limit or the block size. If they do that, right, if they increase the block size, then they're sacrificing some level of decentralization. Okay, so again, these other chains aren't solving Ethereum's issues in a way that Ethereum would want to solve them. They're solving them in a way where they sacrifice some level of decentralization, and because they're sacrificing some level of decentralization, they are able to, to not have the fees quite as high. So that's my opinion on the matter. I'm sure I've just, I'm sure I've stepped on some toes or triggered a few people, so I'm sort of avoiding looking at the chat right now. That's generally my opinion. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then out of the other ones, pick the best hedges that you can and hope you picked right. Hope you picked correctly, because some of them won't last, right? Some of them just won't last, especially when it becomes apparent that no one's going to use them. Not all the chains are going to get used. It won't make sense. So pick the ones you think will stand the test of time, and hope you're right. And maybe some level of diversification, is not bad to sort of hedge your bets. So what questions do we have? And then, of course, these comments bring out the people saying, oh, well, such and such blockchain has everything. I assure you they do not. I assure you they do not. If you think they do, I think you're just drinking too much Kool-Aid, because I can assure you that there's not a project out there that is decentralized to the extent that Bitcoin and Ethereum are, right? I mean, they're just more decentralized than all of them. And so if these other projects that you like are faster or something, it's because they've sacrificed something. And I'm not going to argue with people now about it. I think it's blatantly obvious for anyone who cares to look. Anyone who doesn't care to look will just tell me that, I've gotten into some of these arguments on Twitter with people. But a lot of times what I find is what they say, instead of actually wanting to talk about roll-ups or anything like that, what they'll just say is they'll just use the they'll put out the buzzwords. They'll just say the buzzwords that they've been hearing elsewhere. They'll just parrot the same buzzwords over and over and over. That doesn't mean you understand the technology. That just means you're just parroting what someone else said. So I'm telling you, Bitcoin and Ethereum are more decentralized. I mean, Bitcoin's more decentralized, and then Ethereum is more decentralized than these other chains. It just is. And the other chains are solving the issues that Ethereum needs to solve using solutions that Ethereum doesn't want to use. It's just a fact. I mean, go ask the Ethereum developers. Could the Ethereum developers make it so that Ethereum is like it's super quick? Yeah. How do they do it? They just increase the block size, right? That's all you have to do. It's not like it's rocket science. It wouldn't take that much effort for them to do it. Well, why don't they do it? Why don't they do it? Why don't they increase the block size? Well, they don't want to sacrifice decentralization, because if you increase the block size significantly, then it takes more resources to run a node. If it takes more resources to run a node, it means less people can run nodes. If it means less people are running nodes, it means it's more centralized. Okay, so that's essentially what's going on, in my opinion. Again, you can disagree with me, but Bitcoin and Ethereum are more decentralized, and the other ones are just simply not. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just depends on what you find more important. Obviously, the Binance Smart Chain is super centralized, but it didn't stop people from using it, right? It didn't stop people from using it. Tons of people use that chain. Tons of people use other chains because they find value in what other chains have to offer, but it does not make them more decentralized than Ethereum. All right. What other questions? Currently, we're chilling right below 39K, so we'll see what happens here. Are the cliff? Someone says, are the cliff dwellers now okay? Well, I mean, if we're looking on the daily time frame, you know, we have one cliff dweller here, I guess. It's hard to draw these on the daily time frame, actually. Yeah, I mean, they're doing okay right now. We'll see how they hold up over the next few days. We've come back down to the level we were at a few days ago. So back on July 30th. I mean, we were at these prices like 3 days ago. So it's nothing too crazy at this point. But we'll see. I mean, I think the more important thing is, when do we break through the 20-week and when do we hold it as support? Until that happens, we're just, you know, we're quabbling over nuances and whatnot. Someone says they can see furniture in my... Why do you guys care about my chair so much? Yeah, there's a chair in the background. The chair has always been in here. It was just maybe slightly moved somewhere else. Yeah, there's a chair right there. I hope you guys find it super fascinating. Do I have any thoughts on the Harmony One smart chain? You know, I think that their validator program needs some work, to be completely honest, right? Like, you know, a lot of these networks, they want, you know, they want marketing. They don't have to pay for marketing, right? I mean, just create something that's usable, right? Create a product that's usable and it'll market itself. That's how you do it, right? That's how you do it. That's what they need to do, right? They need to spend less time. They need to spend less time paying people to shill their shit, right? Spend less time paying people to shill their shit on YouTube and not disclosing the paid promotion, and spend more time making a better product that people can actually use, right? You make a good product, the market will reward you. If all your product is marketing, then eventually the market will figure that out. So I would say, and this doesn't just go for, you know, for that chain. I mean, I feel like a lot of chains, they need to fix their validator programs. Like, fix those, and things will be a little bit more organic, I think. Until then, you're essentially, you know, like decentralization. Yeah, okay, right? You want to call it that, you can call it that, but that's not what it is. Let's see, what questions do we have? Do I think that Ethereum will bleed against Bitcoin in Q4? Yeah, probably. I do. What has my worst buy been? I think this market cycle was probably buying XRP right before the SEC news. To be completely honest, right? We talked about that before. So yeah, I think it was buying XRP before the SEC news. I mean, it's done relative. I mean, I'm still up from my cost basis. I'm still up from where I bought it, but I mean, so what, right? I mean, most coins went up like 10x, So, yeah, probably that was probably the worst one. Am I yield farming at the moment? Of course. Am I a believer in the flippening of Ethereum against Bitcoin? Um, Not this year. I don't think it. I don't think not this year. It's hard to say. I mean, it's hard to say it's really super far out. I mean, I think let's put it this way. Maybe this is a way I can probably frame it in a way that hopefully doesn't piss too many people off. Right? There's probably I don't know. There's definitely some. I mean, I know a lot of people want Ethereum to flip Bitcoin, and I think it would actually be great. I mean, I think it'd be kind of hilarious to some degree. But one of the issues, I do think, one issue is that if Ethereum does flip Bitcoin, it might make institutional investors be like, well, what about, what wasn't Bitcoin? Like, isn't Bitcoin, isn't that the king, right? Isn't Bitcoin the one that moves the market? Like, if another crypto is overtaking Bitcoin's market cap, that could actually look bad for crypto to some degree. Like, honestly, like, I feel like there's a part of all of us, right? There's part of all of us that want to see Ethereum flip Bitcoin, right? I think it'd be a great news story. I mean, obviously, everyone and their mom uses Ethereum for something. At the same time, there probably would be a little bit of fallout from it, especially from institutional investors being like, well, maybe this isn't as safe a play as we thought it was. Maybe Bitcoin isn't as safe a play as we thought it was. And Bitcoin is sort of like the gateway crypto, right? I mean, most people start with Bitcoin. Well, maybe the Gen Zs start with Doge, but most people start with Bitcoin. So do I think Ethereum can flip Bitcoin in 2021? No, not a chance. In fact, I would say it's more likely that Ethereum bleeds against Bitcoin in at this point. Even though, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or next week or next month, but if you're talking about in Q4, like October, November, December, I would say it's more likely Ethereum bleeds against Bitcoin. That's just based on historical data. I don't base it on anything else. If you don't like it, right, just take it up with the data, because that's who I'm taking it up with. So I think it's more likely Ethereum bleeds against Bitcoin in Q4. Therefore, I don't think Ethereum will flip Bitcoin this year. Could it happen next year? I have a hard time seeing it as well. If the market cycle extends until 2023, then maybe in Q1 or something, Q2 of 2023, if the market cycle is continuing. I thought, like, if it's still, continuing on and we're still here, let's pull up the chart, right? What are we doing? Let's just pull up the chart. So if we're still, if we're out here, right? If the market continues churning along like this and just moving along and we, I mean, first of all, we need to keep an eye on what Ethereum does right here, right? Because it's a pretty big move. But, if Ethereum is somewhere in this channel as we continue to go out, and we know based on historical moves that Ethereum tends to do well in Q1. Okay, so let's walk through all of these moves. Okay, so when you say, well, why does Ben think Ethereum will bleed against Bitcoin in Q4? Well, that's just what the data says, right? So here in Q4, it bled against Bitcoin. In Q4 so that was 2015. In 2016, Ethereum bled against Bitcoin in Q4. In 2017, it bled against Bitcoin in Q4. In 2018, it bled against Bitcoin in Q4. In 2019, it bled against Bitcoin in Q4. In 2020, it bled against Bitcoin in Q4. And now we're in 2021. So I look at it and say, well, if history is any indication, it's more likely than not that Ethereum will bleed against Bitcoin in Q4. I mean, we use the same analysis to predict February in, the last couple of years, the major move against Ethereum against Bitcoin in January that can extend through Q2. And also you'll notice that every one of these years when Ethereum made a major move against Bitcoin, it happened in Q1 and Q2, right? This one was in Q1. This one was in Q1 and extended through June. So Q1 and Q2. So we have one that's Q1, one that's Q1 and Q2. This one is just Q1. This one was just Q1. This one here was Q1, and then it came back down in March. And then this one was in Q1, and it extended through Q2. But all of them, no matter what happened, whether it went through Q1 or Q2, every single year, Ethereum ultimately bled against Bitcoin in Q4. So that's why I think it's more likely than not that Ethereum will bleed against Bitcoin in Q4. It's not based on any fundamental reasons, okay? It's not. Could we be wrong? Could the analysis not take us that direction? Yeah, it could. It'd be the first time, and that's fine. I mean, I still have Ethereum, so if you're thinking like, oh, if it goes up and Ben doesn't, no, I still own Ethereum. I'm just being honest and saying I don't expect it to outperform Bitcoin in Q4, especially after a major move in Q1 and Q2. So with that in mind, thinking that it's not going to outperform it in Q4, where does that put us? Well, imagine the cycle continues on, okay? And this is the uptrend channel that we stay on. And let's use this bottom line as a lower bound. And let's assume best case scenario that Ethereum's able to stay against that bottom line. Remember, the flippening originated a long time ago. I mean, a long time ago. And it wasn't the move in January of 2018, because then we only made it to 0.1 or so. But this one over here, right? This is the one that made it to June of 2017, the end of Q2 of 2017, that took us to 0.15. Okay, 0.15. Now we're going to go on a bit of an adventure. So what are we going to do? We're going to go to this date and see how close it came. Okay, so let's go on a little adventure here. We're going to go to the week of, and let's actually switch this over to days so we can get it down to the day. The June 11th of 2017. Okay, so June 11th of 2017. And you can see on June 11th of 2017, you can see what happened, right? So here it is. So here's a historical snapshot. On June 11th of 2017, Ethereum reached a market cap of 31.4 billion, and Bitcoin was at 48. Okay, so Bitcoin was at 48 billion. So it came relatively close in Q2, and then it bled. And now we're looking at it and saying, well, I mean, it's probably more likely to bleed than than go up, in my opinion, right? So that means it's probably not going to happen this year. But could it happen next year? Well, let's go look. Well, let's assume worst case scenario would be like us coming all the way back down to this line. And then let's assume that it comes back up over here. I mean, maybe we get to 0.1. I don't know. If the cycle extends out to Q3, to 2023, then our lower bound going into January could already be 0.07 or 0.06, right? I mean, this could the current price, the current valuation of Ethereum against Bitcoin now could be the lower bound. And if that's the case, and we're blasting off from that level, right? Like right now, this is a fairly elevated valuation, not because of any fundamental reason, because I know I know there's Ethereum lovers who will say it's still undervalued. And I love Ethereum too, but I'm just saying, relatively speaking, we were at 0.02 earlier this year, right? We're at 0.02. So it's just that the market participants have a way of forgetting where things were not so long ago. So right now, 0.06 or 0.07 is sort of an elevated area because we moved to it really, really quickly. And we don't know yet if it's sustained. But if the cycle continues, I mean, you can see we've been in this channel since 2019. If the cycle continues out until, say, 2023 or something, and the lower bound that we're bouncing off of going into January is 0.06, then maybe that's when, right? So, if you're asking me, can Ethereum flip Bitcoin in 2021? I would say probably not. Can it flip it in 2022? I would also say probably not, okay? And then in order to talk about 2023, we'd have to see, well, are we still bullish? Is the cycle, are we still moving up, or has the bear market, the multi-year bear market already started? So we'll have to wait and see. All right, Bitcoin's back above 39 for the time being. Let's go look at it on the 1 hour chart. So Bitcoin's at 39.1. So I mean, if you look at the 4 hour, I was looking at this trend line, right? We were on a fairly bullish trend line for a little while. Moving up relatively, in sync with this 4 hour trend line. And every time we came down to it, we just blasted right back off. Okay, and this happened a number of times. And then here we failed to hold it, and now we dropped down. Okay, and this was the candle that took us down. We dropped about 3.5%, from 41.3 all the way down to 39.8. So a little over $1,000 move to the downside. Right now, though, Bitcoin is at 39.1. And so I think the area to continue to watch is probably the 21-week EMA, okay? I mean, obviously that's the lower bound on our bull market support band, which again, the 21-week EMA is $39,430. So we're about $300 shy of the 21-week EMA. By the way, if you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. Let's go for 1,000 likes. We also do have a Telegram channel with almost 45,000 people. If you guys want to join it, I'll post it in the chat. Remember, we also do have the sale on the premium list. So if you want to get access to that information on how I'm navigating the markets, you can find that in the description below. I'll also post it in the chat as well. People are asking me if Link's going to pump in August. I mean, again, all of Link's prior moves where it put in new all-time highs on a crazy bubble were when Bitcoin was above the 20-week. So if you want to answer that, you have to figure out if you think Bitcoin's getting above the 20-week. It's not above the 20-week now, so I don't think it's about to go to $50, but if Bitcoin is above the 20-week, then, I mean, yeah, it's possible. Yeah, I don't think any of these other projects are going to flip Ethereum, by the way. So again, I could be wrong, and obviously saying stuff like this is definitely, I mean, obviously would put up to scrutiny. But at least I would say that this cycle, especially, I don't see any of these projects flipping Ethereum. Okay, I just think it's just not going to happen. Okay, I think Ethereum is gonna maintain the #2 spot. I don't see it relinquishing that this cycle. And probably not next cycle either. Do I like on-chain analytics? Yeah, I mean, I think on-chain analytics are useful. It's probably something that you should add to your toolkit, right? Have on-chain analytics something that you use. We've had if you go to my channel and type in like on-chain, you'll see we have a few videos where we talk about on-chain stuff every once in a while. But I think what you have to be careful with there's a lot of on-chain analysts that only ever use on-chain data to tell you the price will go up. I've seen a lot of these guys, they never use on-chain data to tell you the price will go down. They only ever tell you because the on-chain data looks like this, therefore the price should go up. So you have to be careful with people who are coming at it from a biased point of view, but you also have to be careful about the same people that are coming at it from a biased point of view, even with regards to, say, like technical analysis or data science analysis in the market, right? You have to be pragmatic, you have to be realist, you have to be unbiased in it, because if you just come at it from the perspective of Bitcoin has to go up, then you're going to use any reason you can, no matter what tool you're using to analyze the markets, to tell people why the price should go up because of either on-chain analysis or fundamental analysis or technical analysis. So yeah, I think it's a useful tool, but I would avoid, just blindly accepting what an on-chain analysis and an on-chain analyst says if all they ever do is use on-chain analysis to tell you why the price should go up. Okay, because a lot of these on-chain analysis guys were not telling you that we were ahead of schedule, right? They were not telling you that Bitcoin needed to calm down for a bit, have a summer lull, right? They were not telling you that because, again, they just assume the price has to go up. Therefore, they'll look for the reason in the on-chain metrics to tell you why it has to go up. We told you we were ahead of schedule. And from my perspective, that either means one of two things. It means either the on-chain analysts were blinded to the on-chain data suggesting that we were going to go down, or it just doesn't matter, right? Or either they were blinded to it, or it just didn't exist. And if it didn't exist, then it questions the usability of it. I would say I would say it's useful. I think it is useful, but I think you need to probably analyze it for yourself, and avoid people who only ever use it to tell you the price is going to go up. Because then when it goes down, then they'll just keep selling you the same stuff. They'll just keep saying, well, it's going down now, but it should be going up, right? So I would say be careful. Be careful with biased opinions. Am I biased? That's a good question. You know, I try to not be biased, right? I try to not be biased, but I think anyone is going to be somewhat biased, right? Like my main bias is, you know, I mean, I think my main bias is always I'm somewhat deterministic in the sense that I think Bitcoin will trend up with time, right? And that is probably my main bias. I mean, there's going to be some other nuanced biases as well, but I would say that my main bias with crypto is that I believe Bitcoin will trend up with time, but it's going to go through these boom and bust cycles, but it generally trends up, right? It generally trends up. So I would say that's my main bias, but I would also argue that if I was not biased in that, I don't know that I would be making YouTube videos on it, right? If I just thought it was going to go down. I think that my bias is that it will go up more than it will go down. But there's still going to be phases where we have, 50% corrections, 70% corrections, or more. I'm not a permabull in the sense that I think it should only ever go up. I think it will trend up with time, but there's still going to be phases where it drops like 60, 70, 80%. And it would be best if you could try to avoid those, okay? So that's where I would say my main bias comes from, is assuming that it'll just trend up with time. Yeah, I mean, maybe one day I'll be wrong. I mean, maybe one day in the distant future, it won't trend up with time. But for now, I believe it will. And so that's probably where a lot of my bias lies. And also, I would say that my bias with managing altcoins is biased towards what altcoins have done against Bitcoin in the past, right? So using data of prior moves of altcoins against Bitcoin, I'm biased in thinking that it will repeat, right? I'm biased in thinking that, right? So like an example would be the last 2 years, we said Ethereum should have a great move against Bitcoin in January based on prior data. And it did, but it could have not, right? And then I would have been wrong, and I would have been biased towards the data saying that, and I would have been wrong. So I would say I'm biased towards the data, right? I'm biased towards historical data, towards historical patterns, and I'm assuming that those patterns are, that human behavior will repeat, and I'm assuming that those patterns will repeat. If they didn't repeat, then my bias would show, right? Imagine if in January, when I was telling you guys that Ethereum was about to go crazy against Bitcoin, if you don't believe me, go back and watch the video we put out like literally every single day in December. And especially on December 31st, I put out a video saying, Ethereum, remember the end of December, because I said, Ethereum's about to have a breakout against Bitcoin. We've seen this every single year. It bleeds against Bitcoin every single year. And then in Q1, it just blasts off. So my bias is towards the data. And if this year, let's imagine the stars align again, because the stars might not align, right? I mean, like if Ethereum does something like this and says to hell with Ben's bias against the data, and if it does something like that, then come January, I'm not going to assume that move can continue. The reason why I might be biased in December to say, hey, Ethereum's about to have a breakout against Bitcoin again, is if it trends down for, in Q4. Like if it trends down in Q4 again, then in January I'd probably be biased again and say, hey guys, I think Ethereum's going to do well against Bitcoin again. So again, I'm biased towards the data. Probably that was a good question. Do I think the RSI is a good indicator for deciding when to sell a coin and take profits? Yeah, I mean, I think it's one tool you can use. I think the main issue with the RSI is that it, I mean, like a lot of indicators, right? I mean, it can stay overbought or oversold for a long time. Okay, but yeah, I mean, I think generally speaking, yeah, it's not a bad indicator, right? It's not a bad indicator. All right, guys, I think we'll wrap it up there. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you guys like the content. Give the video a thumbs up. Bitcoin still just flirting with right below the 21-week EMA. So, I'm assuming that the bulls would like to would like to reclaim that at the very least, especially by the end of the week. I mean, like if by the end of the week we close below the 21-week EMA, that's probably not going to be very bullish. If by the end of the week we close above it and are pushing higher, then that would probably be a point for the bulls. Remember, the first point for the bulls was when in my opinion, was when the daily RSI finally broke out, right? That was the first point for the bulls. But we've also discussed the idea of a relief rally for a long time and a bounce off the 50-week. And so until we actually reclaim the 20-week SMA, then this is just a relief rally. If we reclaim the 20-week SMA and hold it as support, then we know that it was more of a disbelief rally. And that it's actually going to be sustained. But until we actually get above the 20-week and hold it as support, we know that at the very least it's a relief rally. At the very best, it's just the next move for the market. At the worst, it was just a relief rally. But if you guys like the content, remember to subscribe, give the video a thumbs up. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up there. Remember to check out the sale on the premium list. You can find it in the description below. Thank you guys for tuning in. Definitely subscribe. Let's go for 500,000 subscribers. I will see you next time. Bye.